for us to get some sort of a homework done in that day at least. Some few homework. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick up from where we left at yesterday. We stopped where comparisons, right? We did some comparisons yesterday. I don't think so, right? We were just we left. I remember we finished tenses, right? Finished tenses, and then we were starting comparisons. So let me open it up. GMAT, quantitative. We've got verbal here, sentence correction, theory, comparisons here. Perfect. So what are comparisons about? It's a very important topic. Okay, comparisons are basically okay. Comparisons are basically part of parallelism. Okay, that's an important thing we have to understand. So all of this theory is part of the parallelism section. So we're going to apply parallelism with comparisons. Now, when we saw parallelism, we had 4 markers, right? 4 types of markers. What are those 4 types that we saw?
We have correlative,
Correlative, very good.
to be,
To be,
well,
fanboys,
fanboys and comparisons, right?
and comparisons. Now, we didn't go over comparisons. Why? Because comparisons are harder. And what makes them harder? This thing here. Some of the most common comparison markers admit a very flexible degree of parallelism. Okay, a very flexible degree of parallelism using word omission. So they're going to use word omission. Basically, what they're going to do is they are going to omit one of the words. So they are not going to include one word that should be there, but that's going to cause a disruption in the normal parallel structure. Okay, that is why comparisons are more tricky than all the other markers. So basically, they are saying you are going to be able to make exceptions to the structural parallelism. Okay? You're going to make exceptions to the structural parallelism, but not to the logical one, because we know we have 2 types of parallelism, right? Structural and the logical. In this case, you are only going to be able to make some exceptions to have some flexibility regarding a structural parallelism. Okay? So let's see. To understand this concept, let's see these examples. What about the first one? Can you read that one for me, please?
Sure. Joe runs faster than Paul does.
Joe runs faster than Paul. Okay, so you have faster than, that's your marker, let's say. Then, can you analyze the parallelism in that sentence?
Well, there's the noun Joe and the noun Paul. Uh,
Paul and Joe. Okay, so you're making comparison between nouns. That's what you're doing.
well, they're comparing how fast they run.
Parallelism. Parallelism. How do we do parallelism?
Oh, well,
Structures. First question. What is my structure on the right?
well, this is a noun and a verb, so it's a class.
Main clause. Do you have a main clause on the left?
Yes.
Okay. So main clause and main clause. Structural parallelism is perfect. Now, what about the logical one? Does it make sense to compare the way Joe runs to the way Paul does?
Yes.
Yes, so that's fine. Okay, we haven't made any exceptions in there, so that's just fine. No problems. What about number 2? Can you analyze that parallelism?
Okay. So faster than on the left is again the main class, and on the right there's only the noun.
Okay, so is this parallel?
Um, I would say that yes, will be
There are 2 types of parallelism. What are the 2 types of parallelism?
2 types of parallelism.
Yes, 2 types. Or 2
Um,
ways to make something parallel. Structure and what else? And
uh,
logic.
okay.
Okay. Now, are both 100% correct?
Well, um, structure. I think we need a verb to be.
We would need a verb,
Yeah.
correct? So that's not total verb. Structural is not good. What about the logical? Yes. Okay. So what are they doing? Maybe they are throwing a flexibility, right? They're making an omission here on the right side. It's missing a verb. Now the question would be, if I add a one word or maybe more words, right? Is there something I can add to that right side in order to make it totally parallel?
Yes.
What can you add there?
The verb.
The verb runs or does, right? Right. So that means that it's being omitted, so that's fine. That's a acceptable reduction, abbreviation. Okay, that's okay. So that's how they're going to use their omissions. What about the third one? Can you analyze the parallelism in that case?
Okay. So I think here they are compares. They're comparing Joe to another version of you of the past.
Joe to the version of Joe. Yes, I think so too. But let's focus on the structure and the logic. Is that okay or
Well,
not?
so your runs is also main class.
Mm-hmm.
Before is like
An
a
adverb.
adjective or yes.
An adverb in this case.
Ah,
Yes.
okay. Of time, right?
Yes. So it's not a structural parallel, right?
No.
So, but it's logically parallel. Yes. So now, what do we have to do in order to see if this is fine? We have to find some words that they have omitted. That if we insert them in that case, that would make the whole thing correct. Okay. So let's see. What do we have there? What words are we missing that would make that whole thing correct?
A main clause.
A main clause. Let's see. Well, what main clause? How would you, or how are you gonna add it?
Uh, he did it, or he.
He did it before, right? He did it
Yes.
before, something like that. A clause here. So if we add that, that whole thing would be fine. Yes, structurally and logically. So that's fine. That's an acceptable omission. Okay, so that's basically comparisons. I mean, this it's not for all the markers, so there are going to be several comparison markers. Some of them will be able to allow these omissions, some others won't. Okay, but this happens quite often. Now, the important thing here is what is the limit? Because here it sounds like okay, so whenever you can put anything on the right, and that's going to be fine. No, there is a limit. The limit is basically ambiguity. So this will work as long as whatever you're comparing is clear. If it stops being clear, then it's wrong, and then you would need to, or for the sentence to have that those words they're missing. Okay. For example, let's see here. If I say John or Joe built robots faster than some machines, is that okay? How do you analyze the parallelism in that case?
Faster than. So
Hmm.
left is um like a main clause plus a not yet.
To the left we have main clause.
Yes.
Correct.
And to the
Okay.
right, the some machines. Some is a quantity word.
Hmm.
This is a noun phrase or something like that.
No, it's just now. Machines, right? It's
Just
actually a
machine.
blue car. Yes or no?
Okay.
Okay. So you have a noun. So is that fine or not? What do you think?
Structurally talking, no.
Social talking, no. Logically speaking,
Joe builds robots faster than some machines. Well, I think they're trying to say that he builds faster than the machines.
hmm
So I think it's clear.
it's not clear.
No?
Why?
Mm,
So it's logically incorrect also. Why? Because some people must say, okay, I have here some machines. One would believe you're making a comparison between machines and Joe, right? So he builds robots faster than the machines build some
Oh,
robots.
okay. Well,
Okay,
if
but
he
then
builds a
but
machine.
then you have the word robots here. So what happens whenever you have more than one noun on the left? Okay, then that whole thing is ambiguous. Why? Because you have a noun here on the right. Okay, you have a noun on the left. Yeah, what's the problem? You happen to have two. Then that's ambiguous.
Okay.
Okay, so that was different, for example, from this one, right? Here you only have one noun, two nouns, right? Paul and John. That's why it was easy for us to see that the logic was fine. But in case where you have more nouns, then you're gonna need the verb. Okay, very good. So now let's talk a little bit about the comparison markers. Okay, we have a full list of markers. Now the thing is, we've mentioned before that the comparisons are a little bit flexible. Okay, that's not true for all the keywords or for all the markers. Only some markers are going to be flexible. For example, in this case, whatever ends with than, like more, less than, those kind of things, they can have this. They can make these exceptions. The same thing, whatever has as something as good as much as. That's also a marker that allows exceptions, right? Those two markers also happen to be the most common. Okay?
Well, excuse me.
But yes,
What was the exception?
exception is this here, this exception here.
Ah, okay. This one.
Omitting the words.
Okay.
Okay. So they're gonna allow this flexibility. Others, other than more or less than or any, we're gonna know later, we're gonna see later that these are named comparatives. Or whatever has something else, other markers do not allow for exceptions. Basically, all the other markers are strict, they're rigid, they do not allow exceptions, right? But because these two are the most common, people normally refer to comparisons as allowing exceptions. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, so out of these markers, what we have to know, or what's kind of surprising, is that we have three markers that are verbs. Three verbs that are markers. Now that's kind of weird. That's special, let's say, because in the other lists of markers, like the fanboys, the correlatives, right? We never had verbs behaving as parallel markers, right? But here we have three: resemble, exceed, and surpass. Those three are parallel markers, and they are verbs also.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, that's your list of comparison markers. There are going to be more, right? But this is a good enough list. So now let's go here to this theory. This theory is very important. Like versus as. Now, do you happen to know this theory?
I remember like versus us.
So what is the difference between those two?
Well, I think you just like to compare. Um, well, like it says there, I just read that noun.
Nouns, right? Very
Yes,
good.
and the
And
other one
as,
the classes. Yes.
very good. So you're fine with that. Now, more theory about like, especially like, right? When the like phrase comes before the second noun, so when you start with the like phrase, no essential, let's say no essential interruptions are allowed for the comma or before or after a comma. So you have like Joe. You want to compare Joe here to Mike. Okay, that's a comparison we want to make. What's the matter though? In the middle between Mike and Joe, and after a comma, we have an essential modifier, which is that prepositional phrase in 2012. That makes it wrong. Okay, we don't want that. That's bad. Why? Because in this case, it's interrupting the touch. Okay, and they need to touch. Okay. Now, what would be correct though? It would be correct, for example, if instead of having only one comma, we had two commas. That would be fine because in that case, in 2012 would be a non-essential modifier. Okay, so that would be fine, and then we would assume that Joe would be touching Mike.
So if it's between commas, just assume between commas, right?
Yeah, if it's between commas, that's fine, not a problem.
Okay.
Also, it would be correct if we have this, like Joe in 2012, comma Mike. That's fine. Also, why Mike didn't MBA? Because here, Joe in 2012 would be a whole noun phrase. So that whole noun phrase would be parallel to, or I'm sorry, compared to Mike. That's fine. Because noun phrase is like a noun, and that noun is Joe. In 2012, it's just a modifier, but it's essential. You see?
Okay.
So that's not a problem. Okay? But this one is a problem. Without a comma would be a problem. Good. Number two, they say when the like phrase, so this phrase here, comes in the middle or after the clause, or it comes at the end, like in this case, the noun inside will always compare to the subject of the clause. So let's say we have a person here, right? That person is like that, and he says, you know what? I think that in this case, the brother is being compared to the uncle. What would you tell him?
So the subject of the class is um, um, Joe, right?
Joe, right? So in this case, it is pretty clear that they want to compare brother to Joe. So that's fine. It's clear. There is no ambiguity. Some people will say it's ambiguous. Why? Because brother is touching uncle, and also you want to compare to Joe. But no, it's clear because the theory tells you whenever you have like at the end, it will compare to the subject. Pretty easy. Okay. Nice. What about this third one? The comma is essential to set the comparison like meaning. Without a comma, we would set the meaning of the similar to like. So if you don't have a comma, what you're going to do is you are going to have a different version of like, different thing. Okay. So they say Joe wants to play like Messi. Okay. And you don't have a comma, it's different than if you had a comma. That'll be different. Why? Because if you had a comma, that's a comparison. So basically, it means that both of them want to do a certain action. In this case, both of them want to play. But if you don't have a comma, though, it's not a comparison. No comma means imitation. So this guy Joe wants to play imitating Messi, the
Um, it,
style of Messi.
and it's also wrong because we should use such as, right?
That's it. So such as, and it's a different theory. The
Okay.
theory between like and such as that split
Like is with comparison
is when you are talking about examples.
examples. Yes.
If you want to give an example, such as should be the one. Messi is an example of play. No,
No.
here it's not an example. So here we shouldn't use any of this such as or like. So
Okay.
here what they want to do is they want to imitate Messi. It's
Okay.
different. Yep. So in this case, yeah, I mean, if you had a comma, that'll be a comparison. If you don't have a comma, it's not a comparison. They're different. Nice. So now we can start tackling some of these questions.
Mm, could be like
Okay, why are the other ones wrong?
mm, I think with the word just in front of like is worthy.
Just like is worthy. I mean, if we have like, just more worthy. Okay, so that's how. Nice.
Um, also just as with sounds little worthy too.
Different. like and as are different. But let's just eliminate it right away. Because when you have just as, you have to apply the theory from as. So let's say we eliminated just. What would be wrong with that as in C?
It's not modifying the class.
It doesn't have a clause, right? It
Yes.
should be as with a clause, and then yeah,
Comparing
that's
the
why.
class. Yes.
Nice. What about the other two?
Well, the other two are the same as
The other two are the same as, have, and that's it. Okay. So what's the matter with them?
have many. So we use mm, well we use as to compare clauses, right? There is not the case here.
But we have clauses in that case. Remember, lesson number one tells you they
No.
don't always have to give you first the subject and then the verb. That's normally the case. Yes, that's the ordinary way to put it. Yes, but that's not mandatory. Sometimes they can give you first the verb and then the subject.
Okay.
So B and E do have clauses. They have clauses. That's not a problem.
Mm, she did not begin. Well, I choose like because we are comparing the artist with Per Helsing. So now we know.
I'm
I
sorry.
know.
We just like okay, but why would the other ones be wrong though?
I don't know.
Let's see. Go back here. Okay. So let's see. When we use like, we compare nouns. That's good.
Yes.
What happens when we use as? We
Uh,
compare clauses.
yes.
Okay. So it's two clauses, the full meaning of the clause that is getting compared. In reality, as is not a parallel marker. Okay. Not a marker. Even though because it's a subordinator and subordinators are not parallel markers, but it kind of gives you a meaning of comparison. Okay. But it's not a real marker. Now, if you have this, as Joe does, Mike wants to do an MBA, what are you comparing? Two clauses, right? We are not comparing Joe and Mike. We're comparing those two actions. What is the difference then between this one and this one? What is the difference? Is there any difference?
Between as you
As
Mike,
Joe does, Mike wants to do, and Joe, Mike wants to do an MBA. Like an as in this case. Do you see a difference in those two
it's like
sentences?
it's an action, right? The action as you does, Mike wants to do just as.
What is it? What is the difference? Then? Is there any difference?
It seems like not.
There is no difference.
Okay.
They're exactly the same. And so if you use like or as, depending on whether we have a verb, yeah, it could be the same. So here, like could be fine, okay, could be fine, yes, but why are the other two wrong?
Okay. So isn't like a passive voice, the other ones, or no?
No, they are not. But remember, passive voice, that's a previous lesson, right?
Yes.
It's a structure. What is the structure of a passive voice? The verb to be plus the past participle.
Okay. How is
So if
it
you don't
called?
have,
How is it called when first we have like mm, that's a subordinator. The
which one?
first the first sentence, the first class.
Subordinate clause?
Yes.
Yes, because as is a subordinator.
Okay. Notice
Here we have to use a theory, the last theory we saw yesterday, which was helping
verbs.
verbs. That's what we have to use. That's why at least one of them is wrong because of that. Then the other one is wrong because of meaning. And yeah, A is the answer. We have to be able to eliminate B and let's see, B. Do you see any helping verb in B?
In B is to have and letter
B
B
is,
have.
yes,
Right.
have. Very good. Usually they're going to use helping verbs to do what? To replace, right? Other verbs of the same kind. What's the verb it's trying to replace?
Well, the verb did not. So the
Did
verb
not begin.
to do.
So this gets replaced with to do. So have is out, that's out. Okay. Now, what about E? It's a little bit more difficult, right? E. What's the matter with E? Is that here we want a comparison, right? If you have a comparison, let's say the first you're comparing clauses, let's say those clauses have to be in the same direction, positive and positive, or negative and negative. You cannot have a positive thing and then a negative. That's not a comparison.
Tienes razón.
This is a contrast.
Y eso dijo otro.
So the way they're putting it, they say, as did many self-taught artists, that's positive. Bert Hassan did not, negative. That's not a comparison. That's a contrast. And for contrast, the contrast version of as is whereas. The contrast version of like is unlike. In this case, we don't want a contrast. In reality, we want a comparison. So that's out, and B is the answer because in B you have this one in negative and this one in negative. Why in negative? Because you are just comparing the nouns, right? So you are kind of factorizing the verb. So that verb, that action applies to both nouns, to Perhasing and also to many self-taught artists.
Can you repeat just one more time as with whereas, please?
Sure. So as is for comparisons, right? Whereas is a contrast version of as. So if you want to set a relationship of contrast in which one action is positive and the other one is negative, right?
Whereas.
Then you
Okay.
use whereas. That was not the intention in this case. When you had like at the beginning, it was a comparison. You were comparing two things. You are saying that both of them did not begin, right? Both of them didn't do one action, so both were negative. Later, it will be changing that because it's saying the first one is positive and the other one is negative. Plus, it's wrong that they have as. They should have whereas.
Okay.
So that's a little bit more tricky. Okay, very good. But that's why A is the answer here. What about number two?
Uh, so yeah, could be like Byron.
Like Baron. Okay, what's wrong with the others?
So in the second one, we're comparing the death, who is like the noun, to Jack London, and
Over
that's
death with now. Okay, very good. So that's an illogical comparison.
yes.
Nice. What else?
Second one, um, we're comparing a class.
Over a clause. Okay.
We're using just as, so just is necessary, but
No,
also
just as is fine. We're gonna say
yeah,
later just as an acceptable idiom.
just as Byron died,
Hmm?
as Jack London was slowly killed. So we're comparing different things, I think.
Very good. One thing is that he died. The other thing is that he was killed, or brutally killed. So that's not the same. That's the thing. The logic. Nice. What else?
Okay, so similar to Byron, I don't think. I think it's bad. There's no marker.
There is no marker.
Yes.
Similar to is the same thing as like. Okay,
Okay.
just more
Well.
wordy. So we wouldn't prefer it.
Okay. Finally, as did Byron. Well, did is a helping.
Helping verb, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And
And what's wrong
was.
about it?
I don't think there is. Well, it is try. It is to do, right? Um.
This is to do. Yes. What is it trying to replace?
To be.
To be. That's it. It can't. There you go. Nice. All of them have been eliminated because of the correct reasons. Really good. Okay. Later on, we're gonna see what we do when we see just us. But basically, it's very similar to us. Kind of the same thing. You have to have two clauses plus one extra thing that we're gonna see later. Let's do this one, number three. How do we do that?
So yeah, I think it's a little bit more complicated, but I don't think we're comparing nouns here. So maybe like is not correct.
Like, all right, let's see.
No,
You choose the first one.
no. I don't think that like is correct. Maybe.
Okay, why? Why do you hate on like?
Well,
Why do you just like so much? What do you have against like?
so if we use like, we have to modify a noun.
Compare it with it now. Yes.
So first of all, like that of earlier generations, that is well, that of. I don't know.
That is a pronoun of copy, right?
Yes,
That
and
is a copy. Copy
it's
of what?
that of early generations, young adults.
Adults could be a, that you sure? Like
Like
the adults of
that.
generations, that wouldn't make sense.
No, that of early generations. It can be adults.
No, it can't be those. Number one, because adults are people. That is never
Oh yeah,
people.
right. Yes.
Number two, because adults is a plural. That is not a plural.
Yes.
Number three, because if you put adults here, it wouldn't make sense.
Okay. And then the personal house. Maybe house or what? House is.
Okay, is there something that could work or not?
Mm, I'm not sure. Well,
Let's
but
see. Let's go one by one, like adults, right? We already know adults. It's impossible. That would be. What about the word house? Could it work or not?
well, it's a place, but
It could be a thing, a house, right?
it's a
That's not a problem.
it's a
It's not
physical
a
place
place until remember, places are places once you
with
say that something happens
in there.
inside them.
Okay.
If it doesn't happen, nothing happens there. It's a thing, right? So in this case, nobody's saying that something's happening inside the house.
Okay.
So house for us is a thing. Now, house as a thing, could it be referred to with that? Would it make sense or not? What do you think?
Uh, well, what is referring to?
Would it be okay or not?
I didn't hear that the question. Sorry.
So is it okay or not? That's the question. I mean, how do you make it work?
Okay, with house.
Yes, because this house could be the answer. Right? Could be the reference for that. Is it
Mm,
okay or not?
well, that
How,
houses of early generations, but
but it's not houses. Remember, if you're
yes,
saying that,
it's
it's
in,
not houses.
yes, of that.
You're making a copy of a house, of one house. The house of earlier generations. Would it make sense?
No,
No, it can
no,
be the house of a generation, right? So house can be. Is there any other noun that
no.
could be referred to with that? There is.
There's
You
one.
are you are overlooking one noun. Kind of you're ignoring one noun.
It's
More
land.
noun is lost in there.
Land is a goal of majority of young adults. Um, the goal could be the
Goal. All right. What happens if you have the word goal? Okay, let's
goal
say
of early
the word goal
generations.
of so that would make sense as far as the reference. So that could refer to goal. I think that's what they are trying to do.
Okay.
They are saying there's another goal for the other. Okay. So I think the problem with the pronoun has been sorted out. That's fine. But then we need to do something else because we have one more keyword. So far we've only done the pronoun. What else is there to do?
Okay, like that of the preposition of.
Nope, that comparison.
Okay,
So
early
far, everything
generations.
we've done is to make sure that that could be fine. Okay, so that could be fine because it's referring to goal, making a copy of goal. Correct. But then what about the comparison now?
In
Are
comparison
we
to
comparing things that are okay or not?
the goal with the the goal of. Um, but I can see that we're comparing goal of majority of young adults with the goal of early generations.
Would it be fine?
Mm,
There
sounds
is one
good.
rule we're overlooking. Rule number two. What was rule number two here about?
Comes in the middle of the nouns I always compare to subject clause.
So when you have the like phrase at the end, in this case, like his brother, right? What is that referring to? Or what is that comparing to? I'm sorry, comparing to.
To you,
To Joe. Why?
because this is
Because
wrong.
the theory tells you it will compare to the subject, not to anything else. We shouldn't be looking at anything here. It's comparing to the subject. That's a
Okay.
comparison because of theory. But going back here, what is that goal in letter A that being compared to?
Uh, generations.
Generations is a subject
Uh,
of the clause. Nope. Remember, theory tells you this. You have a sentence here. You have like at the end.
okay.
Whatever noun or pronoun that is accompanying like will compare to the subject. That's the rule. That's the theory. What is the
Okay.
subject?
Okay. So subject. There's a lot of
There's only one
prepositions.
subject, huh? There is only one
Yeah,
subject.
yeah. Owning and living. So could be. Um, I don't know if owning and living
Remember,
are
the prepositions are
subjects.
never subject,
I know owning
right?
and living.
Middleman. Only living. That's it.
Okay.
Only living. That's it's a gerund phrase. Can
Okay.
gerunds be subjects? Definitely,
Okay.
right? So we're gonna say eating fast is good for you. Okay, eating fast is your subject. That's not a problem. So in this case, is that correct? That we're comparing owning and living to the goal? Does it make sense?
No.
No, that's it. That's wrong. Okay, because I don't think this one was the hardest to eliminate. Actually, letter A. So the other ones should be easier. So how do we eliminate the other ones?
We're comparing owning and living to that.
Okay, that's fine. But what you're checking B out?
No. As that for regenerations. So as that. In letter C, just as early generations did.
Just as earlier
Um,
generations did.
I have
Why is that wrong?
maybe because just did. Mm, I don't know. So did is a modal verb, and the modal verb of the other one
Did is
is.
the motive. All right, that's why. Okay, did is a helping verb,
Oh, sorry, Heddenberg. Yes.
and this one is a to be. Is that's what you're trying to replace. That's a main verb of the clause. So did cannot do that. That's wrong. Okay. What other thing can you eliminate?
The thing with have.
Have. Okay. What happens with B then? B is even easier. What's wrong with B?
Is that for earlier? There's no verb.
There is no verb. Okay, there is no verb. In that case, it's very good. So you should have a verb, right? That's how, and the is the answer then. Okay, the is the
Okay.
answer. Nice, perfect. So, what else? We have comparison as. Now the comparison as here, it's got three rules. Okay. Now, number one, they say comparison as is a subordinator, so in reality, it's not a marker. Okay. Nevertheless, a parallel structure is favored. A parallel structure is favored. Okay. They say as Joe did his homework, the homework was also done by Mike. Joe did his homework. The homework was also done by Mike. Okay. So in that case, what do we have here? Is that parallel or not? What do you think?
Um, as as you did his homework, the homework was also done by Mike. Yeah. And the first sentence, right? As you did his homework.
Yes, this one here.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, some people might say, well, it sounds weird because here we have Joe did his homework, subject Joe. Then the other clause says the homework was done by Mike, subject homework. What do you think about that? What would you say about that?
Mm, the homework. They're changing the position of the or
They're not changing anything. I mean, but that's that they have different positions.
that's
Yes,
it. But you can understand the meaning.
you can understand the meaning, right? So that's fine. Why? Because here we're making a comparison of full clauses. We don't care about the subject. I mean, the subjects have to be kind of similar, right? But in this case, that the sense of the meaning is what matters. We're not making a comparison between nouns. If it was a comparison between nouns, then Joe and homework wouldn't be parallel. That would be incorrect. But as does not compare nouns.
And it doesn't
It's full
matter
clauses.
that we used did in one side and was another.
No, because in this case, did his homework. This is not a helping verb. Do can be a helping verb. They're not using helping verbs here. They're using verbs. So if I say I do my homework, is that a helping verb? No,
Mm.
just a verb, an action, right? So what's done here? They have. So if it was a helping verb, you would say this is wrong because it's trying to replace was. This did is not trying to replace anything. It's just an action. Okay, that's a difference. Now, so that's fine. That's not a problem. Rule number two: the comma is, of course, before going into rule number two, we want to mention something, right? If you had something that says, as Joe did his homework, comma, Mike also did his, that would be better. Okay, it doesn't mean that the first one is wrong. The first one is correct, but that would be better. Okay, so rule number two: the comma is essential to set the comparison as. Without a comma, we could set the meaning of the same way as. The same thing what happened with like, right? If you don't have a comma, what's gonna happen basically is that you would change the meaning from a comparison to an imitation. Example: Joe wants to play as Messi does. If you don't have the comma, this means this guy is imitating Messi. You see, and that's not what we want. Maybe, I mean, it depends on the context, right? But if you have a comma, that's different. It's not an imitation anymore. That means a comparison. You have Joe wants to play, and also Messi wants to play. Different. You see? So the comma is essential to set that comparison meaning. Is that clear?
Yes.
Very good. And then we have rule number three: just as. Just as forms an optative idiom. Basically, it's not an idiom that if you don't have it, it will be wrong. It's an idiom that if you don't have it, it's just ugly. Okay? So the idiom for just as is you have your just as here. You're going to have one clause. That clause is a subordinate clause, comma, another clause, which is the main clause. But when you have just as, we would like to start the main clause with so. That's it. If you don't have so, so too will be fine also. Now, if you don't have so too, then you don't have nothing. That's okay too. That's acceptable. But you would prefer to start with so or so too. That's the idiom for just as. Okay, to start your main clause with so or so too.
Just as.
Example here: just as Mike went to school, so did Joe. So did he. Right? Just as blah blah blah. So this. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. Good. Good. So let's see. More about as. As is one of those words that are highly used. I mean, they use it a lot. Okay. For example, such as, right? Such as, you have as something as, you have same as, a lot of assets, right? This theory we're seeing right now has nothing to do with those other assets. Those idiomatic assets, they follow different theories. Okay. Here we're going to see the subordinator as. How do you know that as is a subordinator? Well, because they're going to give you two clauses, right? As clause number one, comma clause number two, or clause number one, comma as clause number two. That comma here is optional. So here, if you have two clauses, then in that case, as is a subordinator. If as is a subordinator, then you have 45 different meanings actually, right? First meaning is the one we already saw, the comparison. You could be comparing two clauses. Second meaning would be the imitation, right? If you don't have a comma, then it would be turned into imitation. Meaning number three would be a because. Actually, if you sometimes you're going to use that as for subordinator in order to indicate a cause effect relationship. Mike didn't sing or didn't go to movies as he was broke because. And then number four will be while. So sometimes you're going to use as in order to indicate while. Okay. Now the thing here is if you want to make sure that you know the differences between those four, just meaning. That's the only way to know. Okay. But what you have to be aware of though is that not all the times you have as clause, comma clause, it's because you want to make a comparison. Sometimes you're gonna want to do something else. like because or while. Okay. So basically, do not apply the theory so fast. Make sure before you apply the theory of comparisons and say, well, if I have as, I need a clause, then another clause, then compare. Now, before you apply that, make sure that in reality, the sentence is trying to set a comparison. Maybe that's not what they want to do. Okay. Exceptionally, they say here, the subordinator as could be joining a prepositional phrase to a main clause. So there is an exception. We've mentioned that when we have the subordinator as, we want to have clause and clause, two clauses, right? But there is one exception in which you have as, and you've got a prepositional phrase and then a clause. That will only work when you're trying to hear this prepositional phrase talks about an event or a circumstance. And you're trying to say that that event will happen again. Okay, that's the only meaning for that as. That's why we call it stage as. That event will happen again. If you have that let's say connection, logical connection, then you are going to have that you can have that prepositional phrase instead of a subordinator as. Okay, is that okay?
Yes.
Perfect. And then we have more about as, right? So as could also be, instead of being a subordinator, it can also be a preposition. When it is a preposition, it will work very similar to like, as far as not meaning, but as far as structure. So you have as a noun and then a clause, or you might have a clause as a noun. Those two. Okay, that's what you may have. So here you've got, for example, you have two meanings for this prepositional as. The first one would be a role as your teacher, I recommend that you study more. So, as your teacher, that's a role. So you have as plus noun, and you are trying to modify recommend, right? So basically giving a role to somebody. And then you have the age as a little kid, right? When I was a little kid, I thought I could fly. So this one is giving you the age of an action. Okay. So those are the possible actions or possible functions for the prepositional as. Another example would be this. The new iPhone works as an EKG machine, right? So in this case, you have that as a role. Functions as functions or works in the way or as, right? Or behaving as an EKG machine. So that's what they're trying to do,
Okay.
right? Nice. So now we go here to number four. A lot of things regarding as. Okay,
Okay.
as is one of those words that appear everywhere.
I don't know if I remember all
No, I mean just little, but basically, that's important for you to know that you can be applying that theories. A lot of people make this mistake. They see as and say, "Oh, as is wrong. Why? Because you should have a clause and another clause, and make a comparison." And that's not the only meaning of as. You'll see as all the time. So before you start applying that theory, you should make sure that you're in front of a comparison.
Okay.
That's it. Number four.
Can I eliminate those ones who have been, because being is ugly, or no?
Yeah, you can. You can. I mean, it's not the best way. I mean, if you are, let's say, in a rush, yes. I mean, you already know they're very ugly, let's say, right? So they're half that. They're half that. But still, we want to be able to do other things. Let's say,
Mm,
being also here, see, right? So those three are very ugly. So most likely, they're not going to be the answer.
okay. I thought she said. Because on letter E, as an adolescent, could be meaning of while.
Meaning of while as an adolescent.
Yes.
Yes, but while
Well, she was an
it doesn't have the
adolescent.
meaning of while. Why? Because the as that has the meaning of while is a subordinator, which means it has two clauses. This as is not that
Ah,
meaning.
yes, just now. Yes.
Just a
Okay.
noun. So this as could be any of these two, role as or Asians. Those two only.
A role or age. Okay.
Yes.
So it's a of age, right?
Right. It's of age and that's way shorter than the other one, so E is the answer. When she was an adolescent. Adolescent. Right. That's what they're trying to do.
The letter B is wrong,
Let
or
it be, yeah, it's kind of wrong because while is weird for periods of a person's life.
okay,
It could be okay for a time while I was walking, but not while I was a kid, right? It should be when I was a kid,
okay.
or it should have been when she was an adolescent, but not while for stages of a person's life. Nice. So now we go to number five. That's it.
So we're trying to compare or make a relationship with how some of Pepe's give a sense of something every time you read something about him or that he wrote, and
Hmm.
also the to Jane Fritz like voice or narration, something like that.
Okay. Let's start with the idiom for just as, right? When you have just as, what idiom do you prefer?
Um, just as mm, so, right?
So, right. So you prefer so. So these two are kind of out. They're not totally out, but we prefer so. Those three, the first three are much better.
Okay,
Then what do you do?
okay. So I have to. Mm,
Make him as, I mean, the most parallel as you can.
okay, probably letter B.
Let it be, right? All three are fine though, because they have its clauses, right? And those clauses make sense. But letter B is the most parallel, because they're starting with the same subject. You see, so I mean, we don't care about that too much, really. But if we have three that are correct, of course, we're gonna prefer the one that is the most parallel. You see?
Okay, the guy
Fine, cool. So, any questions here?
no.
Other comparisons. So, there are several words or several keywords that will behave as like. They have the same theory as like. Here we have some that are besides, right? Unlike, aside from, other than. You have in contrast to, or with, in comparison to, comparison, comparison to, and you have then similar to. Okay, so those will follow the same theory as like. So you have to have a noun, and then you're comparing it to another noun. Then they say Be extremely careful with besides and aside from when comparing gerunds. These two prepositions could also introduce description modifiers with no comparative meaning. Basically, say if you see besides plus an ing or aside from plus an ing, it's not really that they're trying to compare that ing. They are going to behave as modifiers. So we are not dealing with a comparison. Let's see. Can you read this one for me, please?
Sure. Besides Mike, Joe also wants to do an MBA.
So you have besides, you have a noun here, Mike, right? So in this case, it's clear that they're trying to compare Mike with Joe. So we apply the theory of like, right? Mike and Joe, are they parallel or not? Good.
Yes.
Now, here, number two, you have besides singing, Joe was also taught to dance. You have besides, but you don't have a noun here. I mean, a normal noun, you have an ing. If you have an ing next to besides or aside from, then it is no longer a comparison.
This is a
Here, it's
simple
just a
German.
modifier. It's a
Okay.
modifier. Modifier just Joe singing, comma, Joe was also taught to dance, right? It's modifying Joe. If it were a comparison, it would be incorrect because you can compare singing to Joe, right? But in this case, it's not a comparison. So if you have an ing next to besides or aside from, we do not apply the theory of comparisons.
Yeah, the theory of comparison.
We don't apply the theory of comparisons. Yeah.
No,
Are we okay with the theory of comparisons? Or like,
no. Because it's modifying. It's a modifier type of thing.
right, it's just a modifier. So it's not comparisons. So we don't apply anything regarding this theory we're seeing right now.
Okay.
Okay? Very good. Okay, so now let's go here to number 6.
So I assuming that unlike is comparing nouns.
Yes, because unlike has the same theory as like.
Yeah.
Exactly the same theory.
So we're comparing a typical automobile loan. So the loan
Yep.
to well, and the lease loan buyers on letter C, for example, we're compared to buyers, and that's not correct, I think.
Very good. Okay, so you have typical loan, listen buyers. Not good.
Yes.
What about in B, in A? What are they comparing it to? To this loan or to
For,
something else?
no, for the buyer.
To the buyer also, right? So that's incorrect. Nice. So what about B? B is even worse. Why?
With
Because you don't
the
have a noun. You
with
need
the
to have a noun, right? So with is not even a noun. That's a prepositional phrase. Out. It's interrupting. Okay.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
For the lease loan buyer, also in letter D, there is no requirement of. I don't know if we are comparing. Yeah, we are comparing loan to buyer here too, or no?
No, we start with for the list and buyer.
Okay,
That's
there
not
is
a noun.
no. Yes,
You need to have a noun there to kind of receive the comparison. Okay.
yes.
Very good. So E, because in E or on E you have this long. See? Right away. So you have the long and the this long. Nice. Nice. 7. That's it.
So here the noun is system or
Yep, funded pension system.
as but founding pension system is a subject or
No,
just
not a subject. Because this whole thing is a phrase. It's a modifier in reality, right? But we don't see it as a modifier, adjective, or adverb. That's just a comparison.
yes.
The approach here is a subject, letter A.
But
So what we have,
the noun
system.
is system, just system, right?
Yes, that's this.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
you have modifiers. The funded pension is modifier for system.
Yes. Okay.
Hmm.
So system, I in letter A, I can compare system
With what?
uh, to unlike a pension system, a pay as you go approach is a foundation.
Yep, a pay-as-you-go approach. So what are you comparing the system to?
The approach,
The approach. Okay, that's the first one, right? That's letter A. What about the other ones?
and the second one to the foundation.
The second one to the foundation. Okay, perfect.
Foundation, yes.
Foundation.
And the third one to the approach.
Approach.
The third one too.
The
Uh,
fourth one too.
uh, Social security.
Social security. So what makes more sense here?
The pension system, the system to the foundation.
Nope. The
Mm,
pension system. What pension system?
so social security is from.
Social security. There you go. That's the only pension system you have in there. Nice. Okay, so that's a little tricky. Okay,
Okay.
because it does require some knowledge about the states, and sometimes we're going to do that. Okay, very good, very good. What about number 8?
Okay.